All right. So we wanted to think a little bit about what effective writing assignments look like before we jumped in and talked about putting them on Canvas. And you know that if you've attended anything at the campus writing program, we are big fans of John Bean. He has a book about active learning that talks a lot about using writing in disciplinary classrooms. And he tells us this. So I'm in this quote right here. He tells us that an effective meaning constructing task has two dimensions. It presents students with an authentic problem requiring them to either do their own critical thinking, or it invites them to pose their own problem and then, of course, do their critical thinking. And it also presents the problem within a rhetorical context that gives students a role or purpose, a targeted audience, and a genre. So in these strange and interesting times, writing assignments can sometimes feel very sort of divorced from course content or from the purpose of the class. And what we really want to do is think about how can we create a real audience, or as close to a real audience as we can, and a real task that someone in the discipline might actually do to make students be engaged and to really put their critical thinking effort towards these writing assignments. And so John Bean suggests giving students both a raft and a tip. So the raft is just a nice little mnemonic device for the four elements that a writing assignment handout especially should have. And that is the role or purpose of the assignment, like why are we doing what we're doing? The audience that the assignment is directed toward. And ideally that audience might be what we call an authentic audience. So perhaps we could have them write towards the city council, as one of Dr. Burt's assignments does. Perhaps we can have them write towards their emerging professionals, which is what I often do. I have my pre-service teachers write to other teachers. But what kind of audience can we have them write towards? And even better, what kind of format can we ask them to put that in where they could actually get feedback from that audience? So one of our writing intensive instructors actually has brought in industry professionals to have them review her students' work. So not only having an authentic audience, but getting that feedback from a real audience. Because so much of our work is online these days, there's many different formats that we could do that are multimedia and digital that allows for that interaction beyond the teacher, essentially. And then what's the task that they're going to be asked to do? And when we think about task, I really like this one. John Bean says, give your students a tip, which is a task as an intriguing problem. So rather than it being asking them to regurgitate content, give them a problem or have them come up with their own problem within your constraints, and really rethink of the task as a question or a problem of the discipline rather than just a discrete writing assignment task. And so to finish up this part, we'll talk a little bit about Slagle wrote this interesting article in the National Writing Project's the quarterly publication. And she said, basically what we want to think about is how can I turn what could be an academic exercise into something real? And so as we go throughout the Canvas portion of today's workshop, I want to invite you to think about that. How can we turn the academic exercises that we have in our classes into something real and interesting, and perhaps something that can go longitudinal throughout the semester? So not just a one and done, but a multiple step problem. So I want to pause for a second and ask you to weigh in either via voice or via chat. If you have one of these assignments, give us some ideas. What do you do in your class? Or what is your instructor? If you're a TA, what kind of assignments do they have in their class that are authentic and ask students to really think about problems of the discipline? I'm telling you what, I'm getting really good with wait time these days. So I will smile and wait.
I'll jump in, Christy, because you're making me really uncomfortable with this wait time thing. So one of the things I'm asking my students at the community college this year to do is that they're going to be writing some social media posts as a way to communicate to their peers and family members. So to try to give them a more authentic audience, something they might do as an expert in animal science. So we're trying that out this year.
I love it. Thank you. I said in the chat, the wait time works. See, someone, it's usually me in a class, feels uncomfortable and says something. Great. I love the idea of social media posts in multiple ways. So I do a similar assignment where I ask students to take really complex theoretical learning in the education discipline and translate it to a social media post, so that that act of translating gives them that real audience and makes them like take in the knowledge and sort of shake it around in their brains and spit it back out in their own language, which is exactly what we want them to do. But sometimes if we have them write a paragraph summary, they don't do it in their own language or show their own learning in the way that we would want them to. But what I've also been thinking a lot about recently is that a social media post isn't a social media post, right? There isn't like one social media genre. So my students have been really interesting in the ways that they've thought about which social media platform to go to. So if they're going to Twitter, they might be thinking about, how can I get this down to a really brief, smart, witty statement that will go viral? That's the goal of Twitter, right? Or if I'm going to Instagram, how can I pair a caption and hashtags with an image to go viral? Or if I'm going to Snapchat, like how am I showing something interesting and different there, right? Or whatever new social media platform that exists that I don't even know about. So this idea of translating from the book work, the academic work, into a more public platform is, I think, really valuable. It's also what we do as public intellectuals, right? Those of us that write for a more public audience. So thank you for that. If we have no more questions or ideas, let's move on to think about how to put these excellent assignments that we're imagining onto Canvas, right? So hopefully you can still see my screen. Good. And my other screen is over here. So when you see me looking that way, that's why. All right, so let's talk a little bit about creating and grading Canvas writing assignments in a sort of a step-by-step way. So the first thing that I like to think about when I'm thinking about Canvas is that we know that students don't read directions very well, and that's students of all ages, including us faculty folks, right? We are not good direction readers. And so it's important in online classes to put directions in multiple different locations so that students can see them multiple times and can always find them. And it's also important to put directions in the same places every time at the same time every time. So there's an interesting Chronicle article that came out last week about how routines and structure are even more important in the online world than they are in our regular classrooms. And I took that to heart as well. So I thought I might show you how I often organize my class. So this is a class that I taught last semester. Here's a shameless plug, by the way. I'm teaching it again this semester, and I have low enrollment right now. It is called Academic and Professional Writing for Graduate Students, and it's a class hosted through the graduate school that is available to all master's and PhD students in all disciplines. And we really think about both how to create more, better writing, and also how to look at writing at the language level, so the phrase, sentence, comma level. And I got pretty good feedback from students. They found it really useful. So I'm happy to send you those materials afterwards if you're interested. But anyways, in that infomercial here, this is one of the examples of how I create a Canvas announcement. So you'll see that in my Canvas announcement for my last week of class, I gave them a step-by-step listing of what to do. And then I also find it really useful to link different materials throughout. So I lectured on Panopto and I linked it here. And then I have Google Slides that I linked here. And then here's the handout for that as well. So students can kind of see everything in one place. And then if you go to the actual assignment, so here's the assignment that they were to submit, you see that I've asked them to submit their final written reflection following the guidelines in this document. So when you click on this document, you see even more detail. So this is the actual assignment sheet for the final assignment that I want them to have with the requirements and the structure, etc. So I try to use less language early, and then as they click the links, they can get into the more detailed elements. It takes a while to put all that together, but once it's done, it's done. And so this semester, I'll just have to adjust due dates and put it back in there. So that's our first sort of tip on creating good Canvas assignments, and that is putting the directions in many places and then thinking again about audience and purpose, right? In an announcement, we want to keep it short and sweet and give them the important parts. And then in the assignment handout, that's where we might put the rubric or the checklist that's required. All right, so I'm not sure of the level of Canvas knowledge here, so feel free to stop me and ask questions, or say, we already know this, let's move on. I do see that Richa asked a question, how do you embed links in Canvas? great question. I will start there and then I'll go through the rest of my handout. So we'll play around in our campus writing course so I don't accidentally change a student's grade or something from my course last semester. So we'll create a sample announcement and I'll show you how to do that, Recha. So all you have to do is just push plus for the announcement. And the good part about announcements, by the way, is that they often are emailed to students depending on what their level of emails is set to, but usually they don't change the announcements. They have those emailed to them. So that is helpful. You know that they at least get those directions in their inbox. So I might say, check out my handout here. And then all I have to do is click this little chain link and put it right there. Now I use Google for everything. Don't tell the tech people because Google is still not our main platform, but you can do that with Box as well. You can also link within Canvas. So the neat thing here is if you use Google or if you use Microsoft Word, for example, you can go to Files. Let's see if it'll open here. Nope. Julie, help me.
It's the link on the right. See how you have the links and files and images? There's 3 tabs. You're welcome. I do this a lot.
I'm also not being able to, oh, I also, there we go. I do not use this, obviously, but Julie does. So you can see all the course files in here, and you can also upload files through Files as well. So say I want to link this handout to this file. I should be able to click link. Julie,
You just got to click on it, Christy. It's super simple.
All?
Just click on it.
Thank you. There you go.
You're welcome.
This is the team effort, the campus writing program. So you know it's turned blue, and that means that it's linked. So you can link to Box, Google, or within Canvas itself, depending on what you want to do. Good question. Any more questions before I move on? And then just for funsies, if you want to include an image, you just click this embed image button. And let's see, you can embed from Canvas. This is where I've like uploaded images myself, or you can use a URL. So if you find an image that's like open access online, you can put it there. But I usually just like upload images of my dog, or that farewell image I uploaded as well to put in there to make it cute. Okay, so the way to first create an assignment is to go to the assignments link. And you see that I have one created here under this assignment grouping called Creating WI Assignments That Work. That's just the title of today's workshop, and I like to keep them together based on the unit or whatever. So since I've already created that, I can push the plus sign. And then when I click more options, you'll see what it looks like. So just create new assignments. So all you have to do is create the assignment name. This is where I would link my handout again. I usually write a few sentences about what they're doing, and then I would link my handout. And then you can just fill in these elements. So however many points you want. I often display the greatest points rather than percent or complete, incomplete, just because my course is a points-based course. This submission type is important. So if you want them to submit it in class, to hand it to you physically, you choose on paper. If you want them to submit it online, which is what I often do, because last semester I had all of my graduate students submit literature reviews in paper, and then the next day campus shut down. And then I had all these, I had like a stack of literature reviews I had to scan, etc. So I've learned my lesson, and this semester we're going to do everything online. So when you choose online, you have a couple options. Text entry means that a box is going to pop up for them just to write text in. They can't double space, they can't even indent, and it makes your grading options fewer. You aren't able to use the speed grader in the same way. So that's text entry. I do that if I'm doing like a formal little little paragraph writing, but I don't do that for longer papers because then they'll copy and paste something in there and it's kind of a mess. So I always do file uploads, and then I almost always restrict it to the programs that I have on my computer, which is Microsoft Word and PDF. Both of those will allow you to interact with the text in whatever way that you want to in the speed grader, which we'll show you here shortly. Recently, I've started assigning media assignments where I ask students to create a podcast or to create a 5-minute video in response to some course question. And so if you choose media recordings, they can actually upload that recorded file and it'll pop up in a little window and you can watch it or listen to it just right there within Canvas. But for this assignment, I want them just to write a traditional paper and I want to be able to make marks in the paper. So I'm going to choose file uploads. Plagiarism reviews where you could have them put it through Turnitin. I don't often do that just because of the nature of my assignments. You can create a group assignment. Now here's something important to know. If you want it to be a group assignment, you should create it that way early on, because once a student has submitted an assignment to the assignment grouping, you will not be able to go back and change it. So that's something to know as you create this. You can require peer reviews, which is useful in a writing class, which means that students will be able to review at least one of their other students' papers. They can do that by name or anonymously, and we have a whole workshop on that coming up later this month. I will put the date in the chat, or ask Jackie to put that peer review date in the chat. We have one more of those coming up. And then just put a due date in. So we'll say it's tomorrow. And then it's important to push save and publish, otherwise it just saves it and it doesn't publish it. So there we have it. That is how you create the assignment on there that you can link things to, you can embed images, etc. Now, if you would like to add a rubric, you have to add a rubric after you create the assignment. I think that's strange and backwards, but whatever. So create the assignment first, and then you would push this plus rubric button. Two options for this. You can either create your own rubric, or you can go and find a rubric from previous courses or the Canvas column or Canvas comments, which we can show you later if that's something that someone's interested in. So I'll just choose this media unit plan rubric that I made for a different one of my classes. And
Hey,
there it is.
Christy,
Pulls it in. Yeah, go ahead.
if I have a rubric already made and I don't want to retype the whole thing again, can I just import a file or I can't?
Okay, so that's the bad news. The good news is once you have it in Canvas, it stays there forever and you can use it for as many courses as you want. The bad news is you do have to create it within Canvas. You cannot just upload a doc or an Excel file, unfortunately. They tell us they're working on that.
Okay, thank you.
But we're happy to help you do that as well, because it does take a minute to figure out how to adjust it. And Julie's really good at it. She's the one that does all of our campus writing program rubrics. So feel free to reach out to me or her. We can help you with that.
Okay, I also had one more question. I know that I've heard that when you make announcements, people can actually do media recordings. You can record, greetings or whatever. And then even class discussion, I've heard people saying that students can actually record discussion and chime in and say. So I just wanted to know how to do that. That's one place. I don't know where to begin for that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, great question. And I'll actually show you as well, once we get to the grading part, that you can record media comments to grade papers. So if you don't want to type a whole thing out, you can record a video or audio to grade as well.
Yes, that would be awesome if you can show us.
Yeah, it's super useful. So let me think about this. So you can insert media there. Julie, do you know a better way to create it within announcements, or should we create it elsewhere and embed it in announcements?
You would have to create it elsewhere, like in Panopto or Zoom, which uploads to Panopto, and then embed it within the announcement.
So you can't really record in Canvas. Someone told me that you can. There's an option to do that.
You can for like assignment grading, but as far as I know, within the actual Canvas modules themselves, you have to use another program like Panopto to embed.
Because someone was telling me that. I don't know. Someone did tell me that welcome video, they just made a video on Canvas. So maybe it was just Panopto and I misunderstood. I don't know. Yeah.
No, that would be really cool.
I was trying to find, I'm just clicking through things here. And everything takes longer when you're on Canvas. I think it's here. Let's look here. Let's see if it loads. Yeah, there we go. So this is very meta. There's like a video of me within the video of me. Very strange things happening here. But I use Flipgrid, Richa, and I really like it. I'll put it in the chat here. I really like it for these short check-in videos. you literally just create an educator account. It's used really often in K-12. You create an educator account and then you have free access to a bunch of stuff and you just push record and then it records it. And then at the end it says, here you can download it or here you can link it. So what I did here was just embedded my Flipgrid video that I made elsewhere. So it's the same thing as Panopto videos, but I think there's a little bit of a learning curve in Panopto that Flipgrid's much easier. And I'll ask Jackie if she wouldn't mind to put the link to my recorded Flipgrid workshop into the chat. And maybe we can watch that and see if that seems more user-friendly. And that's just for announcements or short lectures. It only goes up, I think, to 10 minutes. So that's how I would do it if I wanted to create video announcements. And then we'll show you how to create the media comments within Canvas.
So you can use record within, like it's installed within Canvas. If you go to announcements, there is an option there to record yourself.
Awesome. Let me get the other course open. Thank you. Let's see here. Elena, show me where to push the button. Push plus announcement.
Yeah.
And then.
And then it's the one that's like, no, up. In the second row, yeah, that one.
There we go. There it is. This is exactly.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Oh, there it is again in weird. This is exactly what it looks like within the grading system as well. So it's this little button that looks like a YouTube link essentially. Thank you. All right, we'll get through this together. Okay, so we have the idea of how to create an announcement. Let's now look at an assignment. Let's look at how to grade the assignment. So the grading system on Canvas, once you get used to it, I think it's actually really user-friendly. So there are two ways that are most effective to access the students' uploaded assignments once they've already uploaded them. The way that I always go is by SpeedGrader. So if you go to the assignment, and I'm grading this assignment, reading and writing in my discipline essay, and I click on SpeedGrader, it will take me directly to SpeedGrader, and I can click through all of my students. So you see, I only have one uploaded. It's by test student. Jackie didn't upload her paper. We'll get on her about that. But here's the test student uploaded paper. And so that's the easiest way to get there, I think. There's another way, however, and this is kind of new in the new gradebook. So if you go to grades, which is just your gradebook, the new gradebook has multiple options. And what we've learned is that Canvas is what they're calling like a living LMS, a living learning management system, which means that changes happen all the time. And it's not like you have to download a new change, it just kind of like appears. So things could change by the time you get ready to do this. So don't get frustrated if they do, let us know. But you see that there's test student here and my assignment here. And this little icon means that they've actually submitted something where these students have not. The red means it's late, they've not submitted it. So if you click on that little submitted icon and click this little arrow, it gives you all kinds of interesting pieces of information. So this student submitted their paper 22 days late, which is neat. That's a new feature. You can also make it excused if something happened and you wanted to excuse the student, but you can also access SpeedGrader this way. So they both get you the same place. The grades just gives you more options if you want to make them exempt or something like that. So here I have my essay it's an essay I often assign my students. And I want to think about when I would use the tools in the window. So that's what we call the SpeedGrader, which is within this window. And when I might use the tools on the side, which I usually call those like the holistic commenting tools. Because the challenge with online grading is that we could spend forever doing it, right? Because there's so many options. You can read the handwriting, you don't have to physically write everything. And so I like to use these tools, that is these tools at the very top, when I'm making specific localized comments. So for example, I might tell a student that I really like their use of dialogue here. Let's see. Oh, that's the pointer. So if I really like their use of dialogue, I might want to highlight that and put a comment with it. So this button right here allows me to highlight, and I can change the color, which is fun, and leave a comment and say, love the dialogue. So I think these are super easy to point out grammatical challenges, to make draw students' attention to where they might have more clarity, to tell them that they're doing a good job with evidence. They're really useful. So I'll run across the top here. The zoom is pretty self-explanatory. It gets bigger or smaller. I like it to fit in one window. This makes it full screen, which I don't know why anyone ever uses that. I never do. This is the pointer. So say a student has embedded a URL into their assignment, you could use this pointer and then it'll turn it into a little hand and you can click on the URL. This is sort of like an area marker. So I may want to say something about this whole paragraph, and I can just click and type and say, needs a topic sentence, maybe. And that will direct them to the whole paragraph, whereas this directs them to like one sentence. This is the highlighter. The text box is literally a text box. So if you want to write somewhere in the white space, if you're judging or assessing, say, an image or something that may be more pictorial. And then the strike through allows you to take things out. Oops, I gotta click on it first. So you can literally strike through. And then this is a free form thing that you can do, color and change lines, etc. So these, I don't ever use the crop. Julie, what does this do? Do you know?
I use it. I draw boxes around whole paragraphs.
Oh, it draws boxes. There you go.
Yeah, it draws different colored boxes. You can leave a comment like this paragraph should go sooner or later, or is really great, you know, if you're saying something nice. So that's what I learned that from one of my TAs.
Nice. Well, I just learned it from you now. So now I'm going to use that. Thank you. So these comment features within the document are what I call localized comments. They really ask students to look at the writing like in these discrete bits, but I always want to also have them think about the writing as a whole or a more global comment. So over here on the side is the assignment comments box. And the interesting thing about this box is, I'll say John and I'll write him a note, right? Is that most students have their settings set to the point that this box sends them an email. So it's important to know two things. The comments you make within the window are not terribly easy for students to access. They can't find them very often. So I have to teach students how to access those within the window, and I'll show you how to do that here in a second. These assignment comments, the more holistic paragraph that you write, they often get an email, so they see that right away. It has their grade attached to it, and it goes out as soon as you hit submit, it goes out. The other thing to know is that once you put a number in here and it refreshes itself, which is like every few seconds, as soon as you like move off of there, it's going to update that grade in the grade book. And so if you prefer to grade everything first and then go back and adjust grades, etc., you're going to want to hit this little eyeball. It's up in the upper left-hand corner. And you have to, this is a new way you have to do it now. This is new. You have to grade one first, right? And then hit hide the grades. Did they adjust that, Julie, or is that still the case?
That's still the case, but every time after you grade a new one, you have to hit hide again, which I found out last semester, which was a lot of fun as I got students who are like, why is my grade posted, but this person's isn't? If you go to the grade book, there's the option to hide all of them before you start grading things, but you can't do it from within this part as far as I understand.
As you used to be able to. You used to be able to click this and it would mute the whole assignment, and you cannot do that any longer. I'll make sure we go back and look at that gradebook element. So I usually try to choose one or the other, to either leave a lot of comments in the document or a really nicely written paragraph in this assignment comments box, because to do both takes a really long time. So if it's a final submission of the assignment, I will probably spend most of my time in the assignment comments box, because I really want to say, I noticed you did this well. I noticed you're still struggling with this. Have you considered this? Because they can't revise it. They're not going to resubmit it. There's no point in really going through and fixing every comma, as much as I really want to do so, right? If it's earlier in the drafting process, I may leave a lot of comments in the actual document so they know exactly where they need to pay attention when they're revising or when they're thinking about resubmitting it as a different type of assignment. You can, of course, do both, but I want to give you permission to not kill yourselves when you're trying to grade online, because it already takes a little bit longer than normal. And then finally, I might click View Rubric. And this rubric that I have chosen to attach to this is a free-form commenting rubric. And so I built it such that, we can show you that if you're interested, but that I had to actually physically write comments here rather than just clicking a 4, 3, 2, 1. Because for me, it's more useful to write the comments and then give them the score. And I can kind of justify why I took a few points off, or I can justify why they got the 100%. The neat thing about this is that yeah.
So this is the rubric that you uploaded from the already established rubrics?
Correct.
right? And if you upload a rubric there, then it shows up for each assignment, for each of the submissions. Is that correct?
Correct. So you have to upload the rubric after you create the assignment for the whole class.
Mhm.
And you do that under the assignments tab. When you go to the assignment, it will allow you to add the rubric there. And that's where we were earlier when we talked about you can't just
Right.
upload it, you have to build it. And then once
Yes.
you build
Mhm.
it and attach it to that assignment within that assignments window, then it will automatically show up for all the students, which is really
Okay.
handy.
So you can individually then score each assignment, or
That's
at least in this case, which is really neat, you can write comments for each special section of the assignment. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then if you don't want to write your comments here because you're like, I already wrote them below in the assignment comments box, then you can actually create a rubric that you just has 4, 3, 2, 1 or 2, 1, and you can just click your responses and leave your comments in the big assignments box. So you can, there's lots of ways to do the commenting here. So I just encourage you to figure out what works best for your class. I can never decide between like a 3 and a 2 or a 4 and a 3. So clicking buttons doesn't work for me. I'd rather just put a bunch of language in there and then let them figure it out. The key is just that students have some reasoning for why they received the grade that they did. So when I get done doing that, I'm gonna have to add points or it's probably not gonna let me save it. Then I just hit save, and this, you notice that it says 48 out of 50. So when I hit save, this is the key. I've learned the hard way that you have to put that number here. There, even if you haven't marked as the rubric is going to grade the assignment, you still have to put the number there. Julia disagrees. Do you disagree? I'm not sure.
No, I've had pretty good luck where if I make sure that you click that on the assignment details, I don't know if you can click back on the assignment details.
Yeah, let's go look.
On reading and writing on my discipline essay.
Let's go look. I could be wrong, and they could have changed it. So
I've never had too much trouble with it.
Okay. Let's look. Let's verify. Everything takes longer when you're zooming within Canvas. So, Richa, this is where you'll notice that the assignment is attached to rubric is attached to the assignment. So here's the assignment in the assignments tab. And then this is where I click the button like, I'm going to include a rubric. And then if I want to edit it to make sure that the rubric is what I want, I can click the pencil here. But because I want to make sure the assignment is what I want, I'm going to click the pencil here. So there's multiple pencils within Canvas as well. Let's make sure I click that button. I lied, it's in the other one, isn't it?
It's hidden right below the rubric, Christy, on the other page is where that button is.
See? Can't trust me here. This is why I'm glad.
Oh, that's fine. So scroll down further.
Here?
Scroll further. Scroll further.
There we go.
Here.
Okay.
So use this rubric for assignment grade. I mean, I've had really good success with that. With my students, at least, it's worked out okay. And then it'll automatically just input that score up top if you fill it in all the way. It will fuss at you if you forget to fill in a box with a number, like you were saying. But it should fill it in automatically.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So as you can see, Canvas is an ever-evolving, confusing thing, but the good news is you can't really screw anything up in it. Like you can't really delete things for forever because it'll ask you 3 times if you want to delete something for forever. But that is a problem with Canvas, is there's often checkboxes embedded below or within different parts, so you want to always check for those. So let's head back to my handout and make sure I've covered what I said I will cover, and then I will be quiet unless you ask questions for Julie or I to answer. A few things here. The Mizzou Canvas setup guides are here. So if you're very new to Canvas, this is a useful link. You can just click on that. This is where we talked about using the speed grader, and that's the window that has all of those options within it. And then the assignment comments window is the one on the right. And then we talked about rubric as well, which is where, and I got distracted, but I would use that to give feedback on specific learning objectives if I had those set for my assignment or for my course. And so there's all kinds of really useful guides on those 3 elements right here if one of them is unclear or if I've confused you, which is likely. So the last thing I want to tell you before we end today is that it's really important to direct students how to find your feedback, especially when it's within that speed grader window. Because what I have learned is that I've spent hours leaving feedback in there and my students haven't done anything with it. And I've gotten so frustrated. And then I realized, I think it took me a year to realize that they didn't do anything with it because they couldn't find it. It is not easy for students to find. So I always post this in the announcements early on. I send it in an email to them. I make sure to tell them in my lecture that to find my feedback, because I always write within the document, they have to go to grades on their own gradebook. Then they have to click on the assignment name, and then they have to click on the view feedback link. And then it pops up kind of wonky, like sideways on the screen. And then they can scroll through and see all of the highlighting I've made and all the commenting I've made. These directions came directly from our Canvas support people. So feel free to copy and paste that in your syllabi or in your own lectures. Once I did that, students, I could immediately see them accessing their assignment and responding to me in the comments. So it was pretty obvious that that was a challenge. Also let them know that it's hard to find the feedback on their phone or iPad. It's really better to do it on an actual desktop or laptop computer, which again is not great for accessibility, but that's what we have to work with for right now. And then finally, the question always is, so I made all these comments and I spent all this time and my students didn't actually do anything with it. And that's so frustrating, right? When I used to teach high school, I used to like rip up a paper in front of them, like make a big scene if they didn't do what I said to do. But that's harder to do online and probably not the best pedagogy anyway. So here's a better idea. Instead of getting mad, perhaps we can make students create a revision plan, which would be very easy to do within Canvas. I might ask them to respond to me in that assignment comments area. So in that box where I wrote, "Dear John, this is what I like, this is what you struggled with," students can respond to you and they can attach files, they can do all kinds of things. And so I have had really good luck with them actually responding to me in that area, better than they do within emails, which I thought was interesting, generational divide perhaps there. And so I might say, here's what you did well. I want you to make one goal for revising the content of your paper and one goal for revising the language, and reply back to me. I want to see that, because that will save their reply in the Canvas assignment. And then when they send their final copy in, you could go back to that assignment and say, did they really do what they said they were going to do? Sometimes I like to ask questions. I might say, have you considered doing this? Or why did you make this choice? So maybe I'll actually ask them to respond to my questions. And then I know they've at least looked at something, right? And then I think it's useful for them to synthesize the comments. So if I have only written within their document, I might ask them to go through and create a list of themes of what they see. And they may say, well, I've noticed that my sentences are very long. You say they're very long. There's one thing to focus on. I've noticed that I don't have enough evidence. There's another thing to focus on, etc. So these steps will allow them to make sense of the comments in a way that can helpfully propel them forward. And then you can keep track of them very easily within Canvas that way. What have I forgotten or said incorrectly? Or what questions do you have?
I know Rita was asking if you could show how to find the CWP rubrics that we've made that are just easily downloadable.
Yeah.
Yep.
And before that, I had another question, Christy. So
Sure.
you're saying that you can include a revision plan in your assignment, right? So then when when you create an assignment, they can only submit once. Let's say if you want a draft and a revision, then you have to create 2 independent assignments, right? So otherwise
Right.
it won't work. Or is there any way by which they can, within that document, they can provide some, attach the second document again? Is there
Yes.
a option there?
So the only challenge comes in if you want to give them additional points. Like if you want to make it an assignment, a point-bearing assignment, the revision plan, you would want to create a whole new assignment and direct them to put their revision plan in the whole new assignment on Canvas. However, if you want to make it like a checklist where you say they get 10 points just for having done it, and you want to just make sure that you keep track of that, they can respond to your assignment comments and they can attach Microsoft Word and other documents within their response to your assignment comment. So what that means is,
Can you please show me again exactly what was that? Thank you.
so within the SpeedGrader, sometimes I just click on things. I think my computer's being taken over by someone that's not me. Let's see here. So when I go to the assignment, I want to go to SpeedGrader.
Yeah.
And then they can, so I might put a comment here and submit it.
Mhm.
and it'll say, Christy made this comment. They get a box like this that says, reply
Oh.
to the instructor, and they can reply, and this is the attachment button.
I
This
see.
is if they want to do a voice or audio comment, and then this is speech to text recognition. So they have all those options again to reply to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then we also understand that your time is valuable. So if you want to stick around and see what we're talking about, feel free to do so. I will be around for the next 15 or 20 minutes, but if you need to head out, we understand that as well. But what I'm going to show next is how to pull in assignments from the Canvas Commons. So on your main Canvas page, you'll see your account name, and then you can go all the way down to where it says Commons right here. When you click on that, you will see that the fabulous Dr. Burt has uploaded a bunch of our CWP rubrics just for your use. And you should be able to search, let's see if this works, Mizzou CWP. Does that work, Julie? It does.
Well, but I think I tagged them all MUCWP, so.
Why can't we just have one nickname for our school? That would be easier. There we go.
There
So
we go.
MUCWP. And so when you search for us, Campus Writing Program at MU, you can see all the assignment, the rubrics that we've created. So we create a claim evidence reasoning rubric that's, I think, pretty good for engineering, but it could be used for any science or social science classes. So what you'll want to do here, and I'm going to, maybe I'll pass it over to Julie. Can you give better directions than me? Because I don't use this as often.
Sure. I usually the import and download. So the rubric doesn't look like much right now, but under each of those sophisticated, competent, there's a whole list of qualities that are associated with that level. And then you would just click which course you wanted to import it into. So if Christy wants to import it into our campus writing program, you can import the course, or you can download a file, which you can then upload to Canvas. And then it just tells you, it'll take a little while to see it appear in your course. But once you've done that, you should be able to, when you click on add a rubric, you should be able to search for that rubric within the course, and it should pop up. If you have any trouble with that, you can always email me at burtja@missouri.edu. It's not too bad once you get the hang of it, but it definitely gives you a way to get a shell there so you can modify it to fit your assignment better. And I think we have 6 or 7 at this point up of different rubrics.
We have one for oral presentations that we probably need to think about updating for online oral presentations. One for a research paper, one if you ask your students to create abstracts. So feel free to use any of those. And I have a whole bunch of my own courses that I'm happy to share with you. A quick question from Marcia was, if multiple drafts are submitted within Canvas, will I easily be able to see draft 1 or draft 2? And yes, Marcia, that's actually a really great feature of Canvas. It will show you the student's name, and then next to it, it'll show you when the student uploaded the document. And you can actually push the little drop-down arrow, and it'll show all of the times the student uploaded the document. So I've noticed that students will upload it, and then 10 minutes later upload a new document because they actually read it and saw some typos, right? And so you can see all of that. Now that is to note, if you're thinking about a revision plan, the points that you enter will always replace the previous points. So you would not be able to give them grades for multiple drafts within one Canvas assignment. You could only update the grade for the first draft. So you might want to create a second Canvas assignment if you want to give them grades for the second upload.
I thought the students, when if they want to resubmit, it gets overwritten, the first submission. Am I wrong?
I think you can, let me look. I think
all the drafts don't remain there. I mean,
I think you can choose from the drop down, but I could be wrong. Let me look here. Let's see. Let me investigate that, Richa, and get back with you.
I've had good success with it, Christy. I had a few students I had asked to rewrite a few things, some plagiarism reasons, and they were able just to re-upload the assignment. And then like Christy said, there was a drop-down menu that you could choose and see the previous submissions, but it would show on SpeedGrader the most recent submission.
But you could choose the previous one. You could click on it from the drop-down and it would pull up the previous submission.
So because I graded the previous one, and then I was able to go back and regrade with the rubric, the new one.
Okay. So if you want, if it's an assignment where you have to submit a draft and then submit, keep revising it. So you could just do that under single assignment, unless it's graded, unless each one of them is graded.
Unless each one is graded, yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Unless your goal is like I'm thinking about now, like I always want my students to get to 100%. So if you're wanting to just keep adding points to their assignments, if they do what you've asked them to do or done the feedback or made it better, then you could just keep increasing their score through multiple submissions. But if you wanted them to be discrete assignments, so if they got a C on the first assignment, it would stay a C, then you'd have to create the new assignment. And they might get an A on that, and then it would average out.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So again, you have access to that handout for as long as you need. I think it's also posted on our website or will be soon with this recording. So if you want to go back and watch this again, it will be there. As always, please feel free to reach out to Julie or Jackie or Amy. She couldn't be here today. Or I, if you need anything at all, we're happy to help you troubleshoot, even if we're not Canvas experts, as is exemplified by today's workshop. Thank you all so much. Have a great summer.